The next morning brought something that nobody expected. General Caxthor sat in his command chair reading reports when Captain Vor Thak rushed into the room. The captain looked scared and confused, which was very unusual for a Valyrian warrior. Valyrians were known for being brave and never showing fear. Captain Vor Thak had just come from the deepest part of the station where they kept their most dangerous prisoner. This prisoner was not like other captives. It was not locked up for crimes or politics. It was kept because it was too dangerous to let free but too valuable to kill. The creature was called Razor by everyone on the station. Its real name could not be spoken by most alien tongues. Razor came from a species called the Kethmori. They were the apex predators of a death world called Vasktar. This planet was so dangerous that even other predator species were afraid to go. Their razor stood 12 feet tall, which made it huge even compared to Valyrian soldiers. Its body was covered in black scales that were harder than most armor plating. It had claws that were as sharp as laser cutters. Each claw was as long as a human arm and could slice through solid metal like paper. Its mouth had 3 rows of teeth that could bite through battle tanks. The creature had multiple eyes that could see in all directions at once. It could move faster than most ground vehicles despite its size. Its hide was so tough that plasma weapons barely left marks on it. Razor was built for killing and nothing else. It was the perfect predator, evolved over millions of years to be unstoppable. 15 years ago, the Valyrian Empire had conquered Vasktar after a long and bloody war. Even with their advanced technology and superior numbers, the Valyrians had lost thousands of soldiers. The Kethmori had fought like demons, defending every inch of their world. Razor had been one of their greatest warriors, killing hundreds of Valyrian troops before finally being captured. Since then, Razor had been used as the ultimate training opponent for elite Valyrian forces. Only the very best warriors were allowed to face the creature in combat. Even then, they usually ended up in the medical bay afterwards. Many soldiers had been killed or permanently injured fighting Razor, but the ones who survived became legends. The creature had never been defeated in single combat. It had fought champions from every species in the galaxy, Drakmori berserkers who could tear apart vehicles with their bare hands, crystal Zephyrian warriors whose bodies were harder than diamonds. Even other captured Kethmori had fallen before Razor. In the arena, Captain Vor Thak explained to General Caxthor what had happened when he went to speak with Razor's standard procedure required telling the creature about new opponents before any fight. This was done partly out of respect for Razor's intelligence, and partly because the creature sometimes refused fights that did not interest it. The captain had expected Razor to show its usual excitement when told about a new opponent. The creature typically became aggressive and eager when presented with fresh prey. It would pace around its cell, making threatening sounds and preparing for battle. This reaction had never changed in 15 years, but today something completely different had happened when Captain Vor Thak described the human designated as Teho. Kim. Razor had become completely still. The creature had focused all of its multiple eyes on the security screen showing the human in his quarters for several long minutes. Razor had studied the footage with an intensity that made the Valyrian captain uncomfortable. Then Razor had done something that had never happened before in all its years of captivity. The apex predator had spoken 2 words in perfect galactic standard language. I refused. General Caxthor could not believe what he was hearing. In 15 years, Razor had never refused any fight. The creature lived for combat. It enjoyed the challenge of facing new opponents. It had eagerly battled warriors from dozens of different species. Some fights had been easy, others had been difficult, but Razor had never backed down from any challenge. The idea that a creature which had single-handedly held off entire Valyrian assault teams would refuse to fight one small human was impossible to understand. Razor had faced armies without fear. It had killed creatures twice its size. It had survived on the most dangerous planet in known space. What could possibly make such a monster afraid? When Captain Vor Thak had pressed for an explanation, Razor had only said that the human was too dangerous. Fighting the human would be unwise according to the creature. Then Razor had moved to the far corner of its containment cell and refused to say anything else. This behavior was so strange that the station's medical team was called in. The xenobiologists ran every test they could think of. They checked for disease, mental illness, Chemical imbalances, brain damage, and dozens of other possible problems. All the tests came back normal. Razor was in perfect physical and mental health. The creature was not sick or crazy. It had made a deliberate decision based on information that the Valerians could not understand. Razor possessed senses and instincts that had been refined over millions of years of evolution on a world where making the wrong choice meant instant death. General Caxthor ordered the security footage to be reviewed again and again. He watched Taeho Kim going about his normal routines. The human exercised in the morning, ate breakfast, studied alien combat manuals, and practiced with training weapons. Nothing about the human's behavior seemed unusual or threatening, yet somehow Razor had seen something that the Valerians missed. The apex predator had recognized a danger that escaped the notice of one of the galaxy's most advanced military forces. This realization was deeply disturbing to the alien command staff. Other creatures on the station began to react strangely as well. The war beasts kept in the lower levels became restless. Several alien soldiers reported feeling nervous when they passed near the humans' quarters. Even the station's automated defense systems registered unusual readings when scanning the human, though nothing specific could be identified. Word of Razor's refusal spread quickly through the station. Personnel who had been looking forward to watching the human get torn apart by the legendary predator now wondered what they were missing. What did Razor know that they did not? Why would the most feared creature in Valerian custody refuse to fight someone who looked so harmless? Darlie Minyoung was the only other human on the station. She worked as a xenobiologist studying alien species for the Earth Science Division. When she heard about Razor's unusual behavior, she requested permission to investigate. The alien command staff was desperate for answers, so they agreed to let her try. Minyoung had spent months studying predator psychology and behavior patterns. Her research had focused on understanding how different species identified threats and made survival decisions. The other scientists on the station considered her work interesting but not particularly important. Now, her expertise might be the key to understanding why the galaxy's most dangerous predator was afraid of a single human soldier. The implications were staggering if Razor was right about the danger. Then everything the aliens thought they knew about humans was wrong. Darlie Minyoung walked through the security checkpoints leading to the deepest level of the station. She carried her research equipment and translation devices. The Korean scientist had studied alien predators for 2 years since Earth joined the Galactic community. Her work on creature behavior had made her valuable to the station's research division. Minyoung was a small woman even by human standards. She stood only 5 feet 2 inches tall and weighed barely 100 pounds. Her blackened hair was tied back in a simple ponytail. She wore the standard Earth science uniform, which looked plain compared to the fancy equipment the alien scientists used. The other researchers on the station treated her work like an interesting hobby. They thought human understanding of alien psychology was too limited to be useful. Most alien scientists believe that only their own species could truly understand alien minds. They saw Minyoung's research as cute but not important. Now, General Caxthor had asked her to solve a mystery that had the entire command staff worried. The most dangerous predator in Valerian custody had refused to fight a human. The alien scientists had no explanation for this behavior. They hoped a human researcher might have insights. They had missed. The journey to Razor's containment area took Minyoung through multiple security zones. Each level had stronger barriers and more guards. The deeper she went, the more dangerous the prisoners became. By the time she reached the bottom level, she was surrounded by energy fields and armed Valerian soldiers. Razor's cell was at the very end of the corridor. It was built like a fortress with walls 3 feet thick made of the strongest materials in the galaxy. Energy the barriers hummed with power that could vaporize anything that tried to pass through without permission. Neural dampeners prevented the creature from using any psychic abilities. Minyoung approached the cell with careful steps. She had studied footage of Razor many times, but seeing the creature in person was different. The apex predator was enormous even when sitting down. Its black scales reflected the cell lighting like polished metal. Every movement showed muscles that could crush vehicles. When Razor noticed her approaching, it turned all of its multiple eyes toward her. The creature's gaze was intelligent and calculating. Minyoung felt like she was being examined by something that could see into her soul. This was not just a mindless beast. This was a thinking being that had survived on the most dangerous world in known space. Minyoung began speaking to Razor in its native Kethmori language. She had spent months learning the complex sounds and meanings the language was difficult for humans because it used throat sounds that human vocal cords were not designed to make, but Minyoung had practiced until she could communicate clearly. The effect on Razor was immediate. The creature sat up straight and focused completely on the small human woman for the first time since its capture 15 years ago. Razor seemed genuinely interested in talking rather than fighting. The apex predator had never shown this kind of response to any alien visitor. Through careful questions, Minyoung began to understand what made Razor different from other predators. The Kethmori had evolved on a world where survival required more than just physical strength. They needed to be able to recognize which fights were worth taking and which opponents posed real threats. Razor explained that predators had different levels of danger. Some were strong but stupid, others were smart but weak. The most dangerous predators combined intelligence with the will to do anything necessary to win. These creatures possessed what Razor called the killing calm. This was a mental state that true apex predators recognized in each other. According to Razor, humans possessed this killing calm to a degree that surprised even the Kethmori. The apex predator had seen footage of human warfare and history. It had studied how humans survived on their dangerous homeworld. What Razor found was a species that never gave up no matter how impossible the situation seemed. Humans had fought wars against each other for thousands of years. They had survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, and countless other disasters that would have destroyed weaker species. Every challenge had made humans more adaptable, more determined, and more dangerous. Razor told Minyoung that Taeho Kim showed signs of the killing calm that surpassed even the most dangerous Kethmori warriors. The human moved with the confidence of someone who had faced death many times and won. The way he examined his surroundings showed tactical thinking that most species never developed. This revelation shocked Minyoung. She had always known that humans were survivors, but she had never thought of her species as apex predators. Earth had many dangerous animals that seemed more frightening than humans, but according to Razor, those animals were just strong. Humans were something much more dangerous. The Kethmori explained that true apex predators were not always the biggest or strongest. They were the ones who could adapt to any situation, find weaknesses in any enemy, and never stop trying to win. Humans had developed these abilities to a level that made them unique in the Galactic. Minyoung asked Razor why it had decided to share this information now. The creature had been silent about human capabilities for months since Earth joined the galactic community. Razor explained that it had hoped humans would reveal their nature gradually. Sudden knowledge of human capabilities might cause other species to see Earth as a threat, but now that the Valyrians were planning to test a human warrior, Razor felt it had to speak. The apex predator did not want to fight Taeho because it recognized that the human was just as dangerous as any Kethmori. The fight would be between two true predators, and the outcome was uncertain. This uncertainty was something Razor had not felt in 15 years of captivity. Every other opponent had been predictable. The creature could assess their capabilities and know how the fight would end. But with Taeho, the outcome was unknown. This made the human more dangerous than any enemy Razor had ever faced. Minyoung realized that her species had been hiding their true nature without even knowing it. Humans thought of themselves as weak compared to the powerful alien species they had met, but according to the galaxy's most feared predator, humans were actually more dangerous than anyone realized. The implications were staggering. If other species learned about human capabilities, it could change everything. Earth might be seen as a threat rather than a harmless new member of the galactic community. Wars had been fought over less important revelations. Minyoung knew she had to report this information to the command staff, but she also knew that once this knowledge spread, there would be no going back. The galaxy was about to discover that the small, harmless-looking humans were actually apex predators in disguise. As she prepared to leave Razor's cell, the creature gave her one final warning. The upcoming test with Taeho would reveal human capabilities to everyone watching. Once the demonstration was over, there would be no hiding what humans really were. The galaxy would have to decide whether Earth was a friend or a threat. Tae-ho Kim walked through the long white hallways of the Galactic Defense Station. His black boots made soft sounds on the shiny metal floor. The Korean Navy SEAL looked around at the strange alien building with its glowing walls and floating screens. Everything here was so different from Earth. The station was huge, much bigger than any building on Earth. Tae-ho had seen pictures before coming here, but walking through it was something else. The ceilings went up so high he could barely see the top. Alien soldiers walked past him. Some looked like giant lizards, others had blue skin and 4 arms. A few looked like walking rocks with glowing eyes. Tae-ho was not a tall man by human standards. He was 5 feet 8 inches tall and weighed 170 pounds. His black hair was cut short in military style. His face was calm and serious like always. He wore his Earth military uniform, which looked very simple compared to the fancy armor the aliens wore 6 months ago. Earth had joined something called the Galactic Council. It was like a big club for planets that had learned to travel between stars. The aliens had been surprised when they found Earth. Most of them thought humans looked weak and small. Tae-ho understood why. They thought this way the Valyrian Empire controlled this part of space. They were the strongest military force in the galaxy. Their soldiers were almost 8 feet tall. They had skin that looked like armor and 4 powerful arms instead of 2. Every Valyrian soldier could lift a car over their head without trying hard. They had conquered many planets and defeated countless enemies. General Caxthor was the commander of this station. He was a Valyrian like all the other commanders. His office had a big window where he could watch everything that happened below. Right now, he was watching the small human walk around the training area. The general clicked his mouth parts together, which was how Valyrians showed they were amused. The general thought it was funny that Earth had sent such a tiny warrior. Most aliens in the galaxy were much bigger than humans. The Zephyrians were made of living crystal and stood 7 feet tall. The Drachmori looked like dragons and were even bigger than Valyrians. When these aliens first met humans, they laughed. Many of them made jokes about how humans looked like children, but General Caxthor was not completely sure about laughing. He had read some reports about Earth. The planet sounded like a very dangerous place. Humans had to fight wild animals called tigers and bears. They survived in places with no water called deserts. They lived through freezing cold winters and burning hot summers. Earth had more ways to kill someone than most planets in the galaxy. Still, the general found it hard to believe that such small, soft-looking creatures could be dangerous. Humans had no claws, no natural armor, no poison, no special powers. They looked like they would break if someone pushed them too hard. The general had decided to test this human to see what Earth soldiers were really like. Tae-ho did not know about the general's plans. He was too busy learning about his new home for the next 6 months. The station had training rooms, dining halls, sleeping quarters, and weapon storage areas. Everything was built for people much bigger than humans. The doors were too tall, the chairs were too big, even the water fountains were too high up. Other aliens on the station watched Tae-ho with curiosity. Some whispered to each other about the strange human. A group of Drachmori soldiers made bets about how long the human would last in a real fight. The Crystal Zephyrians wondered if humans were actually intelligent or just animals that had learned to use tools. Tae-ho heard some of these comments, but he did not get angry. He had expected this kind of treatment. His commanding officer, Admiral Park Jin-woo, had warned him about what to expect. The admiral had told Tae-ho that his job was not just to train with aliens. His real mission was to show the galaxy that humans deserved respect. This was not going to be easy. Earth needed the other planets to take them seriously. Humans wanted to trade with alien worlds and learn their technology, but first they had to prove they belonged in the galactic community. Military strength was still the most important thing in this part of space. If you could not fight, you could not earn respect. Tae-ho understood this perfectly. He had been a Navy SEAL for 20 years. He had fought in wars on Earth, completed dangerous missions underwater, and rescued people from impossible situations. He knew that size and strength meant nothing without skill training and the will to never give up. The young Korean soldier began unpacking his gear in his assigned room. The room was huge because it was made for 8 foot tall Valyrians. The bed was like a small field. The desk came up to his chest. Everything made him feel like a child, but Tae-ho did not complain. He had slept in worse places during his military services. Gear was simple compared to alien equipment. He had his combat uniform, some basic weapons, and training equipment. Most importantly, he had his medical kit. Taeho was trained as a combat medic as well as a fighter. He knew how to save lives as well as take them. This was something that made human soldiers different from many aliens as he organized his things. Taeho thought about his training human soldiers. Learned to fight in every environment. They trained underwater, in mountains, in jungles, in deserts, in frozen wastelands. Humans had to be ready for anything because their home planet was always trying to kill them. Other species usually came from safer worlds where survival was easier. The aliens did not understand this yet. They saw only what humans looked like on the outside. They did not know about human history or the wars. Humans had fought against each other for thousands of years. They had never heard about Spartans or samurai or Navy SEALs. They did not know that humans had spent their entire existence learning how to fight and survive. Taeho smiled to himself as he finished unpacking. He was not worried about the challenges ahead. He had faced much worse than alien soldiers who thought size was everything. The Korean SEAL was ready to show the galaxy what human determination could accomplish outside his room. Alien soldiers continued to walk through the hallways. Many of them glanced at his door and shook their heads. They felt sorry for the small human who would soon learn how weak his species really was. They had no idea that they were about to discover something that would change their understanding of strength. Forever tomorrow, the real testing would begin. General Caxthor had prepared several challenges to measure human combat ability. The alien commander expected to see the human fail quickly and badly. This would prove to everyone that Earth was not ready to be taken seriously as a military power. But Taeho Kim was not just any human. He was the result of thousands of years of human warfare evolution training and the never-ending drive to overcome impossible odds. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous predator was the one that did not look dangerous at all. General Caxthor stood in his command center looking down at the main training arena. The massive circular chamber could hold 1,000 spectators and had enough space for full-scale battles. The walls were made of transparent aluminum that could withstand plasma cannon fire. The floor could change to simulate any environment from desert sand to frozen ice. Since Razor had refused to fight the human, the general had decided to use his elite Valyrian warriors instead. He had selected Sergeant Thekmor as the first opponent. Thekmor was 8 feet 4 inches tall and weighed over 400 pounds. He had 4 powerful arms that could punch through steel plating. His natural armor could stop most weapons. The sergeant had fought in 12 major battles and conquered 4 different worlds. He had personally killed over 200 enemy soldiers in hand-to-hand combat. His reputation as a warrior was known throughout the Valyrian Empire. Many younger soldiers looked up to him as an example of perfect military skill. News of the upcoming test had spread throughout the station. Representatives from every alien species currently stationed there had requested permission to watch. The observation galleries were packed with curious aliens who wanted to see what would happen when their strongest warrior fought the mysterious human. Most of the watchers expected the fight to be over quickly. The size difference between the opponents was extreme. Thekmor looked like a giant compared to Taeho Kim. The human barely came up to the Valyrian's chest and weighed less than half as much. The physical advantages were all on the alien side. Mori soldiers in the audience made bets about how long the human would last. Most guessed less than 1 minute. A few optimistic ones thought the human might survive 2 minutes before being completely defeated. The Crystal Zephyrians calculated the force differences and concluded that the human had no chance of winning. Dr. Min Young sat in the scientists section of the observation area. She had reported her conversation with Razor to General Caxthor, but the alien commander had decided to proceed with the test anyway. The general believed that one creature's opinion could not be trusted without proof. He wanted to see human combat abilities with his own. Estejo entered the arena wearing standard training gear that looked almost comical on his small frame. The protective padding designed for 8-foot aliens hung loose on his body. The helmet was too big and kept sliding down over his eyes. He had to adjust the straps constantly to keep his equipment in place despite the equipment problems. Taho moved with calm confidence. He walked around the arena, examining the environment and testing the footing. His movements were smooth and controlled like a professional athlete warming up for competition. He showed no signs of nervousness or fear. Sergeant Thekmore entered from the opposite side of the arena. The massive Valyrian wore his finest battle armor and carried ceremonial weapons. The crowd cheered when they saw their champion. His forearms moved in practiced patterns, showing off his superior reach and coordination. He looked like a warrior. God compared to the small human. The rules were simple: hand-to-hand combat only, no weapons except natural abilities. No killing moves, but anything else was allowed. The fight would continue until one opponent surrendered or was unable to continue. Medical teams stood ready to treat injuries. General Caxthor gave the signal to begin. Sergeant Thekmore immediately charged forward with all four arms extended. He planned to end the fight quickly with an overwhelming display of strength. The crowd expected to see the human either run away in terror or be crushed within seconds. What happened next defied everything the aliens thought they knew about combat. Teho did not retreat or try to block the charging Valyrian. Instead, he moved sideways. At the last possible moment, the human seemed to flow like water around Thekmore's attack. The Valyrian sergeant had put all his momentum into the charge. When Teho dodged the attack, Thekmore stumbled forward off balance. Teho used this moment to strike at specific points on the alien's anatomy. His hits were precise and targeted, aimed at nerve clusters and joint connections. Within seconds, Thekmore found that two of his arms were not responding properly. Teho had struck pressure points that temporarily paralyzed the limbs. The human had turned the Valyrian's own charge into a weapon against him. The massive alien was now fighting with only half his natural advantages. The crowd fell silent as they watched something impossible happen. The tiny human was systematically dismantling their champion. Warrior Teho moved with efficiency that seemed to violate the laws of physics. Every step served multiple purposes, dodging attacks while positioning for counterstrike. Thekmore tried to use his remaining arms to grab the human, but Teho was never where the Valyrian expected him to be. The human seemed to predict every move before it happened. He flowed around attacks like smoke and struck back with surgical precision. The fight became a demonstration of the difference between strength and skill. Thekmore had all the physical advantages, but Teho understood leverage, timing, and anatomy. The human used the alien's own weight and momentum against him, turning every attack into an opportunity. 3 minutes into the fight, Sergeant Thekmore was on the ground, completely immobilized. Teho had applied a complex joint lock that used the specific anatomy of Valyrian limbs against them. The massive alien warrior could not move without causing serious injury to himself. The silence in the observation galleries was complete. Nobody could process what they had just witnessed. The strongest warrior on the station had been defeated by someone who weighed half as much. The human had not relied on strength or speed, but on knowledge and technique. Teho helped his opponent to his feet with the same professional courtesy he would show any training partner. His breathing was only slightly elevated and he showed no signs of fatigue. To him, this had been a routine sparring session, no different from thousands of others during his military career. General Caxthor stared at the arena floor where his elite warrior stood, rubbing his sore joints. The alien commander had expected to see human weakness demonstrated. Instead, he had watched his preconceptions crumble in real time. Everything he thought he knew about combat had been proven wrong. Dr. Mignon felt a mixture of pride and concern as she watched other aliens react to what they had seen. The demonstration had proven her theories about human capabilities, but it had also revealed information that Earth might have preferred to keep secret. The implications of what had just happened would spread throughout the galactic military network within hours. What started as a simple training exercise had become a pivotal moment in interspecies relations. The galaxy had just learned that humans were far more dangerous than anyone had imagined in his quarters. That night, Teho cleaned his equipment and prepared for sleep. He had no idea that his routine training session had changed the course of galactic history. The quiet Korean soldier had simply done what he was trained to do, but in doing so he had revealed humanity's greatest secret. The galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. Within hours of Teho defeating Sergeant Thekmore, news of the fight had spread across the galactic communication network. Military bases on dozens of worlds received urgent reports about the impossible victory. Every species in the galaxy began requesting detailed footage of the combat. Admiral Zethkol of the Drakmori Empire watched the recording 3 times before he could believe what he was seeing. The massive dragon-like alien had conquered more worlds than any other military leader. In his species' history, he had personally fought in over 50 major battles and never lost a single engagement. Admiral paused the footage at the moment when Teho flowed around Ekmor's charge and began his counterattack. The human moved with a precision that the Drakmori military had never seen before. Every motion was calculated and purposeful. There was no wasted energy, no unnecessary movements. Admiral Zethkol called an emergency meeting of his senior staff within hours. 12 of the most experienced Drakmori warriors were studying the human combat footage. The dragon-like aliens prided themselves on their fighting abilities. They had ruled through strength for over 1,000 years. The analysis session lasted 6 hours. The Drakmori warriors examined every second of the fight, looking for weaknesses in the human technique. They found none. Tehozia's performance was flawless from a tactical perspective. He had identified his opponent's capabilities and systematically neutralized them on the crystal world of Zephyr Prime. The ruling council held an emergency session. The crystalline beings had always relied on their diamond hard bodies for protection in combat. They believed that their natural armor made them nearly invincible against most opponents. Council leader Prism 9 studied the footage with growing concern. The human had defeated a Valyrian warrior by targeting specific anatomical weak points. If humans could find vulnerabilities in Valyrian anatomy, they might be able to do the same with Zephyrian crystal bodies. The council ordered immediate research into human military history and combat techniques. What they discovered shocked them completely. Humans had spent thousands of years developing fighting systems specifically designed to defeat larger, stronger opponents. Every human culture had created martial arts that emphasized technique over raw power. Dr. Min Young found herself overwhelmed with requests for information about human psychology and combat capabilities. Research teams from 15 different species wanted to interview her about her work with Razor and her insights into human nature. The Korean scientist had never expected her research to become so important overnight. She had been studying alien predator behavior as an academic exercise. Now her work was being treated as critical intelligence that could affect the balance of power in the galaxy. Captain Juwon Park was the other Earth representative on the station. He served as a diplomatic attaché handling political relationships between Earth and the various alien species. His job had been relatively quiet until now. Suddenly, he was receiving urgent communications from every major government in the galaxy. The captain found himself trying to manage a crisis that no one had anticipated. Earth had wanted to join the galactic community quietly without drawing too much attention. Instead, their military representative had just demonstrated capabilities that made every alien species nervous about human intentions back on Earth. Admiral Jinwoo Park received emergency reports from the Galactic Defense Station. The footage of Tehozia's victory had been transmitted to Earth Command along with detailed analysis of alien reactions. The implications were clear. Humanity's secret was out, and there was no way to put it back. The Admiral called a meeting of Earth's top military and political leaders within hours. President Kim Soo-jin watched the combat footage. With a mixture of pride and worry, she understood immediately that this moment would define Earth's relationship with the galaxy for generations to come. Meanwhile, Razor had requested another meeting with Dr. Min Young. Through the station's communication system, the apex predator had been monitoring the reactions to the human demonstration through security networks. The creature wanted to share additional information that it had been holding. Back when Min Young met with Razor again, the creature's demeanor had changed. The Kethmori seemed almost relieved that the truth about humans was finally known. Razor had been carrying the burden of this knowledge alone for months. The apex predator explained that the Kethmori had ancient legends about a species that would one day emerge from the outer rim of the galaxy. These beings would not look dangerous but would possess what the legends called the ultimate predator mind. They would be able to adapt to any situation and overcome any obstacle through determination and intelligence. According to Razor, these legends described humans with perfect accuracy. The Kethmori had recognized the signs when Earth first joined the galactic community, but Razor had hoped that humans would reveal their nature gradually instead of through dramatic demonstration, the creature warned Min Young that the galactic reaction to human capabilities would be extreme. Some species would want to ally with Earth immediately. Others would see humans as a threat that needed to be eliminated before they became too powerful. The next few months would be critical for Earth's survival on the station itself. The atmosphere had completely changed. Alien soldiers, who had previously ignored or dismissed Tejo, now watched his every movement with careful attention. His quiet confidence and professional demeanor were no longer seen as signs of weakness, but as indicators of hidden strength. The training schedules were quietly modified to avoid direct confrontations with the human warrior. Nobody wanted to be the next alien to suffer the embarrassment of losing to someone half their size. The request lists for sparring partners suddenly had no names on them. When Tejose's turn came up, General Caxthor found himself in an impossible position. The demonstration he had ordered to prove human weakness had instead revealed capabilities that made his own forces look inadequate. The general was receiving pressure from Valerian High Command to either recruit human trainers or find ways to counter human techniques. The political implications were staggering. Earth had gone from being seen as a minor addition to the Galactic Council to being viewed as a potential superpower. Overnight military academies across the galaxy were requesting human instructors. Trade negotiations that had been stalled for months were suddenly moving forward as species rushed to secure favorable relationships with Earth. Dr. Minyoung realized that she was witnessing the most important moment in human history. The quiet demonstration by one Korean soldier had changed everything. The galaxy now knew that physical appearances could be deceiving, and that underestimating humans would be a potentially fatal mistake. As reports continued to flow in from across the galaxy, it became clear that the revelation was spreading faster than anyone had anticipated. Within days, every major civilization would know about human combat capabilities. Earth would have to decide quickly how to handle its new status as a recognized military power. The small human who had started this chain of events continued his daily routine on the station, completely unaware of the galactic upheaval his victory had caused. Taeho Kim had simply done his job, but in doing so he had secured Earth's place among the galaxy's elite powers forever. 3 weeks after the fight that shocked the galaxy, General Caxthor called for a formal assembly of all senior staff and species representatives on the station. The massive conference hall had been designed to accommodate beings of many different sizes and shapes. Representatives from 12 different alien civilizations filled the curved seating areas. The general stood at the central podium, looking out at faces that showed confusion, worry, and curiosity. The events of recent weeks had challenged everything these beings thought they knew about strength, power, and survival in the galaxy. What had started as a simple military exchange had become a moment that would be remembered for centuries. Dr. Minyoung sat in the front row next to a special communication device that would allow Razor to participate in the discussion. The apex predator had agreed to share its full knowledge about human capabilities and what they meant for the future of Galactic civilization. Taeho Kim sat quietly in the back of the hall, still unaware of the full impact his demonstration had created. The Korean soldier had continued his training routine and daily activities while the galaxy debated the implications of his victory. He looked calm and professional. As always, General Caxthor began the assembly by reviewing what everyone had witnessed. The defeat of Sergeant Vec Moore had been studied by military experts across the galaxy. Every aspect of the fight had been analyzed, but the basic conclusion remained the same. Humans possessed combat abilities that exceeded their physical limitations by an incredible degree. The general then activated the communication link to Razor's containment cell. The apex predator's image appeared on the main display screen, its multiple eyes focusing on the assembled representatives. Through Dr. Minung's translation, Razor began to share knowledge that it had kept secret for 15 years. According to the Kethmori ancient understanding, true dominance in the galaxy did not come from size, strength, or advanced technology. Instead, it came from adaptability, intelligence, and the absolute determination to survive no matter what obstacles appeared. These qualities were more important than any physical advantage. Razor explained that the Kethmori had evolved on a world that was constantly trying to kill everything that lived on it. Survival required not just physical toughness, but mental flexibility every day brought new challenges that demanded creative solutions. The species that survived were the ones that could learn, adapt, and never give up. Earth, according to Razor, was an even more hostile environment than Vastar. Humans had evolved under constant pressure from predators, diseases, natural disasters, and eventually from each other. The result was a species that possessed survival instincts and tactical thinking that surpassed even the most dangerous predator races. The apex predator described what it called the warrior mind. This was a mental state that combined focused aggression with analytical thinking. It allowed beings to remain calm under extreme pressure while simultaneously processing multiple threats and opportunities. Humans had developed this capacity to a level that amazed even the Kethmori. When the floor was open for questions, Admiral Zeth Cole of the Drakmori spoke first. His dragon-like species had built their empire on military strength and the fear they inspired in other races. He wanted to know if humans represented a threat to the existing galactic order. Teho was asked to address this concern. The Korean soldier stood slowly and walked to the speaking platform. His movement was fluid and controlled as always. When he began to speak, his voice was calm and measured. The human explained that Earth had no desire to conquer other worlds or dominate alien species. Humans had learned through thousands of years of warfare that peace was more valuable than conquest. They preferred to trade, cooperate, and learn from other civilizations rather than fight them. However, Teho continued, humans would defend themselves and their allies with absolute determination if threatened. They had developed their warrior capabilities not for aggression but for survival. Any species that chose to attack Earth would discover that humans fought with a ferocity that matched their intelligence. The soldier described human military philosophy as being based on the principle that every problem had a solution, every enemy had a weakness, and every situation could be overcome. Through proper preparation and unwavering will he had defeated Vekmore, not through superior strength but by studying Valyrian anatomy and applying techniques developed over millennia of human combat experience. Dr. Minyoung was asked to provide scientific context for what the assembly had learned. Her research into predator psychology had given her insights that the other xenobiologists had missed. She explained that humans represented a new type of apex predator, one that relied on mental rather than physical dominance. Traditional apex predators like the Kethmori had evolved natural weapons and armor to overpower their prey. Humans had instead developed intelligence, creativity, and social organization. They had learned to create tools, form strategies, and work together in ways that made them more dangerous than any individual predator. The implications of this revelation continued to ripple through galactic society over the following months. Species that had previously dismissed Earth as insignificant began to reassess their positions. Military academies started requesting human instructors to teach adaptive combat techniques. Trade negotiations with Earth took on new urgency as various civilizations sought to secure favorable relationships with what they now recognized as a potentially dominant power. The Galactic Council voted to fast-track Earth's membership applications for various committees and organizations back on Earth. The government struggled to manage the sudden change in their planet's status. Admiral Jinwoo Park found himself coordinating with political leaders to develop policies for their new role in galactic affairs. Earth needed to balance showing strength with avoiding the appearance of being a threat. President Kim Soo-jin addressed the Earth population about the changes, explaining that their planet had been accepted as an equal partner in galactic civilization. The demonstration by Taeho Kim had earned respect for all humanity, but it also meant that Earth would need to be more careful about its actions and relationships. Taeho himself received commendations from multiple alien species and offers to train their military forces. The Quiet Seal had accomplished something that no amount of diplomatic negotiation could have achieved. He had earned respect through competence and proven that humans belonged among the galaxy's elite powers. The story of the Korean soldier who faced down alien warriors and earned the respect of apex predators spread throughout human space. It became a symbol of what humanity could accomplish when they refused to be underestimated. The demonstration had shown the galaxy that appearances could be deceiving and that the most dangerous predator was often the one that did not look Dangerous months later, as Tejo prepared to return to Earth, he reflected on what had happened. His simple training exercise had changed the course of human history. Earth was now recognized as a major power in galactic politics, not through conquest or intimidation, but through the demonstration of competence and determination. The galaxy had learned that humans were survivors who had earned their place. Through millions of years of evolution on a hostile world, they possessed qualities that made them valuable allies and dangerous enemies. The choice of how to interact with humanity was now up to the other species as his transport ship prepared for departure. Tejo looked back at the Galactic Defense Station where everything had changed. The Korean Navy SEAL had completed his mission beyond anyone's expectations. He had shown the galaxy what humanity was capable of and secured Earth's future. Among the stars, the quiet professional who had never sought glory or recognition had become a legend. His victory had proven that sometimes the greatest strength came not from being the biggest or strongest, but from being the most determined to find a way to succeed.